Shall we begin?
Sir, ready ആണ് ഇന്ന് വേറെ formalities ഒന്നും ഇല്ലല്ലോ.
ഇല്ല.
Start ചെയ്യാമോ sir?
Yes, why not?
Shilpa, let us start.
Hope everyone has joined the session. So good evening all. After such a wonderful inaugural session, we have gathered this evening for another informative session of Civil Engineering Finishing Program. Before going into the session, I would like to thank all of you for the positive responses towards the previous session on behalf of the entire CEF family. It's my pleasure to welcome all the alumni members, our dear faculty members, and my fellow CETians to today's session on career options for civil engineers. I consider it a great honor to introduce Mr. Abu Sushilan and Mr. Deepak Benny, our CET alumni members, who will be handling today's session. With over 30 years of experience, Mr. Abu Sushilan currently works as transportation advisor to the government of Sharjah. His professional career started with Kidco Limited, Kochi, after which he joined the Halcro, an MNC based at UAE, where then he moved to a consultant position in a semi-governmental association in UAE before settling to his current position. He also holds membership in a number of organizations such as Chartered Institution of Highways and Transportation UK and American Society of Civil Engineers US. And about Mr. Deepak Benny, he is a consulting engineer in the field of infrastructure development with valuable experience in planning and design of ports, maritime structures, and transport infrastructure. He is currently the managing consultant of Terminus Consulting operating from Trivandrum. He completed his BTech in civil engineering from Government Engineering College Trivandrum from the batch of 2007 and was working in Singapore for 6 years before he initiated the confirming firm. He took his master's degree in marine technology and sustainable engineering from the University of Glasgow, UK, and is currently pursuing an executive MBA from IIM Kozhikode. I welcome you all once again and hope you will have a great time ahead. Now I call upon Mr. Deepak Benny and Abu Sushilan to begin with our session for today. Also, I would like to gently remind you that if you have any queries regarding the session, you may post them in the chat box below. Thank you.
Shall we begin?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Shilpa. And good evening all. I think എല്ലാവർക്കും good evening ആണെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നു, most of us. Anyway, let's assume that way. As you all know, civil engineering is the mother of engineering. I'm proud to say that. Right? And that's because of that one, maybe it's the vastest engineering branches. I mean, among the different engineering branches. So, because of that itself, it's obvious that we have a lot of options in front of us. So today, that's what we are actually briefly going to look at it. What are the options in front of a civil engineer when they come out from a BTech degree or MTech degree or whatever it is, right? So I'll just share a small presentation so that on which we can just quickly skim through what are the options in front of you. Okay, career options for civil engineer. That's a session subject for today. As I said in the introduction, it's one of the vastest engineering branch. And let's see where we are actually going and where we find our windows, right? First, the slide is visible, first of all. Let me ask you, please.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, okay. Okay, the career options on board. And obviously in where. This means on what areas, like discipline, or specializations, or all the kind of things. And in where means where you will be placed. I mean, where you can find a place where you will be start working on that sort of things. Okay, of course, it has got several areas, public sector, private sector, and those kind of things will come through in the coming presentation or further slides. And the contents of today's presentation, we just generally brought into actually 3 major brackets plus an addition. And the first one, what we are going to look at is the on what. That's a section which I'm going to basically look at it. And the second one, in where, and the further down sessions will be dealt by Deepak. Okay, on what, let's just, sorry, surf through the options in front of us. Okay, obviously we won't go into the details of these options, and where we will be, and I mean sort of what kind of things will be covered in that. Those kind of things will not go into that one today, because we have further sections exclusively for each options coming through. Anyway, just to see what are those sections. So as you see, civil engineer, we can broadly divide it into mainly 4 sections, which is infrastructure and transportation, buildings, hydraulics and water resources, and maritime. So subsequent to that one, there are 2 more sections which could be added, which is geotech and commercial. You might be wondering why I'm saying it is subsequently added, the geotech and commercial. So the peculiarity of geotech and commercial, that is applicable to all other sections. Okay, those 4 sections, like I said, the infrastructure, building, hydraulics, and maritime, that has got its own specialities. Further down it will come through. But whatever the specialities included in geotech and commercial is applicable, or in other words, it's needed for all other sessions to be supported, right? So it may be a little bit of confusing, I know that, but when we go down, or in the end, you'll understand what I'm talking about, what is actually supporting, or what is actually applicable for other sections, etc. Okay, now I think we can go one by one. Okay, let's see what is actually in transportation. Obviously, transportation has got highways, railways, and MTS. MTS is mass transport system, airports, and transportation structures and infrastructure. Again, it's a funny thing here. Transportation structures and infrastructure, which is actually a supporting sessions for all other 3. That again, we will come into that one in a minute, okay? Let's look at highways, for instance, okay? Highways, again, you can see there are 2 other skill groups, okay? So this highways is concerned, to me, or according to my observation and experience, there's a lot of opportunities in front of you in highways, particularly in the developing countries like India, as well as other countries as well. Even the developed countries also, there are opportunities for highways. And fortunately or unfortunately, I don't know, I could not find any design highways in Kerala. Although, in Kochi Airport, Seaport Road, RBDC claim it's a design highway or design road. But I personally, I cannot join. Even our the nearby highway, Karakutam Kovalam, which is also it's not to the, I mean, we can say it's a design road, but not to the degree of a real design road in terms of alignment, construction quality, safety, signs and markings, all these kind of things. I could not, I mean, I'm not really convinced that it's a design highway. Even the structural design or its finishes on the bridges appears it is very, very crude. Okay, anyway, it's a different subject. I mean, it could be debatable as well. And another example I'll tell you. Look at that ramp in front of airport. I think most of us must have seen that. It's an awful thing. Several people actually tried to convince me the foresight of that ramp construction, but it was really, really hard to get it digested on what they've been saying. Anyway, it's a debatable subject, and it's a lot of debates took place in that sort of line. Anyway, I just mentioned it when I mentioned about highways, and to me it's a very interesting thing, especially when you try to look at this, the junctions, complicated junctions, or design of those junctions, and come up with a solution, particularly optimum solution to cope up with the traffic problems of that junction. There are several funny junctions or difficult junctions, or rather complex junctions, even within Trivandrum city. One of the classic example is Medical College Junction. There you can see it's a four-arm junction. Adjacent to that one is a Y junction, and all these arms are heavily loaded. And the junction, it's a totally a mess. A lot of pedestrians, a lot of two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, heavy vehicles, public buses, whatnot in there. Okay, so it's a challenge if someone actually try to look at the solution of a junction like that. Okay, what I'm saying is I'm just going in tangent to the objective of this presentation, but still just adding you a flavor of what we talk about and what is actually the interesting parts which will be in front of us, especially highways, because it's a primarily my subject. So I will be a bit more actually talking about highways. Excuse me for that. Okay, let's conclude that highway session there. So probably you must have understood what is actually, or how much options in front of you, or how many windows in front of you under this particular category itself. And there is another session what you see is traffic engineering in there. This is also, okay, it is, somebody might say it is a bit of unpopular. Somebody might say it's very popular. And some people say it is quite inevitable. And some people misunderstand traffic engineering is the whole thing, which they actually misinterpret. That's the traffic. I mean, whatever the highway constructs is the traffic engineer, part of traffic engineering. Anyway, it's a debatable subject. I'm actually not going into that, but basically it is, it's more applicable in urban environment. All I'm saying is there is a particular skill group in traffic engineering, and there are specialist groups called the modelers and things like that, traffic modelers and things like that, which is also one of the promising skill group. And in part of the region where I'm in, it's a reasonably paid job, and there are less number of people in there. Anyway, let's move on. So next one is railways and metros. In the earlier days, I mean, traditionally railways means it's only railways. There was nothing more onto that one. Everywhere people will see, okay, well, the railway, it's going. But if you go to the ancient cities like Calcutta and things like that, or the places like that, you might have seen the trams and things like that. So there was something which we're not maybe fully aware of by ourselves in our or in my generation in the earlier days. Of course, when we go for this all India tour and those sort of things, it's unfortunate that those kind of areas we never been to. Anyway, but it's developed, and it's not the conventional railway or traditional railway as like what we used to see. Now it's becoming a very effective and very good mode of public transport, and it's a mass transport system. It's a very effective mass transport system. And there comes even the railway, the traditional railway itself is facelifted to somewhat, even the railways, good railway stations, you can see it's like an airport. So things are changing. So things are changing in the sense a lot of opportunities are being explored, particularly civil engineers. Of course, it's not civil engineering, it's other branch of engineering also coming into that. This is another subject if we talk about that one, because civil engineering, okay, we will go into that one in a minute. In the end, maybe we can just have a quick word with that. And if you look at the MTS session, the mass transport system, this is one of the areas where a lot of researches happens these days. A lot of researches means a lot of researches. You might have heard about these sky trains and metros, light rail, even Hyperloop. Latest is the Hyperloop. Hyperloop technology becoming popular, and especially that's applicable like big countries, particularly like China, India. Of course, India is also, it's going to have the first Hyperloop between Mumbai and Pune, which will be, I mean, to me, it's an interesting thing. It's about 200 kilometers. You are getting to there in 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. Imagine if you have a Hyperloop in Kerala, and if it starts from Trivandrum, you can dream it, okay, whether it will happen or not. In 20 minutes time, you will be reaching Mangalore. Think about if it has got a stop in Kochi, how many minutes will take it from Trivandrum to Kochi. So these kind of developments are actually happening in the transportation sector. That's what the bottom line I'm trying to conclude. Then if we go to airports, airports, actually that itself remains as a specialization or skill group. And this also, there is a debate. I mean, some people say, oh, it's not anything different from roads. If you design a runway, it's nothing different from a road, but it's a slightly different code. And terminal building, that's the usual building, but it could be a slightly different code. But yes, to a certain extent, it is. And in theory, we could say it is. But in reality, there are certain parameters which are actually something specific to airports. And regardless of all these debates and things like that and concepts, employers will always search for specialists. When they look for somebody to work for airport, they will definitely look for a person having airport background or airport experience. Of course, when you people, then you will be asking, okay, as a fresher, how do you get airport experience? Or not only in airport section, all sectors, people will look for that. So that means somewhere we got to start. That's the thing. That's the important thing. But personally, I would say it's not to worry much about where to start. Okay, if you can start in a place where your interested skill group is, or your ambition is going to be, or your ambition is, then you are lucky. But having said that, there's no harm even if you start with a specialization or with a particular skill group, and after some time, if you would like to change, maybe 1 year or 2 years, you would like to change it. There's no harm. So whatever the experience you are gaining, it's not actually going to be waste, but it will always be an asset. So doesn't worry too much about that. Okay, I didn't get what I wanted in the first instance. Don't worry about that. It will come through. Okay, and you will be slotted into where you would like. Either you will be slotted into where you will be like, or you will get adapted to where you are and you will continue with that. So nothing to worry about that one. And that's always happens. That's why engineers. Anyway, so that's the airport. I think it's not much to say in introduction as airports. It has mainly it has got two parts, like people used to say, airside design and landside design. Airside design means it's anything which is after the terminal towards the runway side, and landside is something from terminal onwards. So that kind of thing. And again, when we come to the details of it, it will be completely clear, and then you will be able to decide it, and you will be able to understand what it is included in and how you're going to perform when you really start your career with a company. Now comes the interesting part, which I said is the supporting structures, like transportation structures. As you can see, it has got mainly two sections, like bridges and tunnels. If you talk about bridges, of course, it is a special category. And then somebody might think, or somebody might ask, how it is different from a structural engineer. Yes, it is different. It's a slightly different ballgame. But of course, it can be to a certain extent, we can say in principle, it's there, but it's a different skill group, and it's a different expertise accepted worldwide. And there is another category in bridges. It is underpasses. So these underpasses also, it is part of the structural or part of the transportation structures coming under bridges. Those who are designing the bridges, they will design the underpasses as well. Those who are constructing the bridges, they will construct the underpasses as well. Now, when we come to tunnels, there are basically two types of tunnels. One is bored tunnels, and the other one is, we used to call it as cut and cover. Cut and cover in the sense it is quite similar to underpasses. Underpasses is what we used to say. That means it's usually a box structure. And the tunnels of cut and cover also, basically it's the same. But bored tunnel means it's a different ball game, and that is something different construction techniques and those kind of things in there. Example is suppose if it's becoming more common these days, like particularly when we construct the metros, precisely in the urban area, in the cities, we may not be able to do above grade or at grade metros. Most of the cases, it'll be underground. That means there we will be using the TBMs, tunnel boring machines, and all those kind of things. That is one way of tunneling. The other one is boring the mountains. So that is another, again, it's a different, slightly different technology. You got to bore the mountain, and then you might have to use the explosives to get it blasted and get it framed up. And there are several processes in that. Anyway, I'm not going into those kind of details, but just to give you an idea about what is actually involved with that one, and how this is, and why this is a special group. That's it. When we come to infrastructure again, there is a utility or service and asset management. Okay, asset management. Okay, we'll get into utilities first. Utilities means it's associated utilities which we got to construct or which we got to design as part of any other discipline, if you like. So that's why I said bridges, tunnels, transportation structures and infrastructure is a part of other three. Means this is required for, the other three sections require their services. To say highways require transportation structure services, and they require infrastructure skill group services. So that's why I've said these two are applicable for the other three sections. And these utilities, that is generally, it's more important if a new area, if a greenfield is being developed or is planning to develop into a township, say for example, then this is very important to plan it there, or even in terms of construction as well. Or if we because this is another thing, which is that the urbanization happens. When the urbanization happens, these kind of things which will have a bit more role to play. Asset management, that's another thing, which, as the name indicates, we got to manage the assets, what we are actually constructing it in terms of highways or structures or buildings or whatever it is. All these assets needs to be managed or maintained. So this is one of the major thing. And unfortunately, in our place where we actually live, people are less interested into these kind of things, which is obvious the reason to everyone. So I'm just not going into that area. So that's a real fact. Let's have a pause here. Okay. What is understood by this? What's the purpose of showing all these things? If you just look at it, there is something interesting you can find it. For example, when you started your course as a BTech student, you've been studying all these things like infrastructure, buildings, hydraulics, whatnot, everything you've been studying. But when you go in the next stage, say when you go to MTech, transportation or build or structures or hydraulics or water resources or environmental, something like that. And when you go further up, when you go for research or something, again, it is narrowing down to specializations. Okay. Let's have another pause there. Think about you starting a career, joining a company. You will be joining a company at the lowest level, which I see the skill groups at the bottom, obviously. So then when you start climbing the ladders, you will be getting involved with the other skill groups or even other disciplines. Or when you move up further, your bracket is becoming more broader. And further up, you will be looking after maybe responsible for the whole transportation. Or further up, maybe the whole civil engineering. So if you look at it, it's like a parabola. Okay? You start a BTech with a big bracket and then go to specializations and go up with the parabola. And then again, coming back when you start your career, when you end at the end of the parabola, you are having a big bracket on your shoulders. This is the whole thing. This is the process. This is an interesting thing if you start to visualize it. So that's why I just wanted to explain this part when we reach here, why we are looking into all these sort of things and how this is going to help you, etc., etc. Okay, we have a few more things to talk about. So let's move on. Next one is the buildings. Buildings also has got 3 specialities in common. One is the building structures. I mean, structural engineer or structural engineering is, we don't need to explain it much. Everybody knows, right? And people are very much aware what is the structural engineer's job and what they're going to do it in terms of design or in terms of construction, etc. But when we come to building infrastructure, at least some people might be wondering, what is building infrastructure? What's the significance of that? If I say in one sentence, anything connected with a building other than the structural engineering comes under building infrastructure, whether in terms of design or in terms of implementation, construction, whatever it is. Having said that, especially in the part of the world where I am in, there is another group called the MEP, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. This is also a debatable area. Mechanical and electrical, it is obvious. It belongs to whom? But plumbing, in our country or in our region, back in India or Kerala, I think things are started changing now. That's part of civil engineering. But again, when it comes to pumps and all those sort of things, again, it is going to mechanical. So that's why in the beginning I said, there is no engineering which can stand as singular. It's a coordination of several engineering branches. It's a vice versa. It's not only civil, but mechanical or electrical or electronics. It's like that. One of the example, if I say, a couple of years back, I've been to one of the tunnel construction sites. Usually, once the the blasting is done, they don't allow people to go in because of the client side. I got a permission to go in, so I just went in. So that time, the blasting was just over. The mucking process was going in. The mucking process, in the sense that means the blasted material, they're going to remove it back out of the tunnel, and immediately they're going to do the shotcrete. Shotcrete means it's a sort of a plastering, but it will have steel reinforcements and things like that. It's a different mix, but it's pumping. So when I looked at it, was a guy standing on the ground and had a machine on the right side. He got a joystick type thing, and the shotcrete was going on. And actually, the guy who is standing with the joystick, he is controlling the shotcrete. So there I saw is a coordinated effort of how many engineering disciplines you can imagine. Yeah, so that's I just mentioned it just for an example. How engineering disciplines are coordinated. And the next one is ID, interior design. Okay, interior design wasn't actually very common in the earlier days, but it has got a major role these days to play, even at the planning stage. So that is becoming another specialist skill group, and it is becoming popular. Again, there is a debate on to this one saying, okay, it's architect's job. It's not really. It's architect's job is just to visualize and see what they want or say what they want. And that the implementation of that or to make that into reality is a civil engineer's job or maybe other engineering disciplines' job. So there is options and windows in that arena as well. Okay, now let's move on to water resources and wastewater management. Water and wastewater management, I must say. As you can see, it has got hydraulic structures, water engineering, wastewater engineering, and irrigation engineering. Hydraulic structures, it's obvious, everybody knows what it is. It's the dams, weirs, spillways, and aqueducts, and all other things will come under hydraulic structures, which is nothing to explain further, I would think, at this stage. Again, as I said, in the forthcoming theme sessions, the things will be explained in detail. Water engineering, again, somebody might be excusing their eyebrows. It has got a major role to play in the daily life of each and every citizen in any country. Some regions, they have natural resources, like in our place, we have natural resources of water. And our main resources is, okay, it's underground resources as well as the rivers. So mostly the river water is being treated and distributing for the domestic use to convert it into potable grade and then distributing it. That itself is it's a big thing, really. And one region where these kind of natural resources are scarce, then there is an alternative way, especially in the region where I'm in. Here, seawater is being treated to potable grade and distributing it. It's called a reverse osmosis and those kind of things. So what I'm saying is, this is an important area where the demand will always persist. Then comes to wastewater. Wastewater, one of the main thing is the drainage. Drainage in the sense, again, there are two types. One is the stormwater drainage or our rainwater drainage or the sewerage. Importance of this stormwater drainage, everybody must have experienced the problem of we are actually having it in Eastwood or Tambanur or the like cities, Kochi. Okay, it's not different. These are all the main problem with that one is there is no properly designed stormwater collection system or the disposal system. This is the main problem what we are facing in these two cities. I mean, not cities, but everywhere where there is flood management system is not in place. Same is the case for sewerage. This is actually, it is a bit of a concern on this, this field, particularly rapid urbanization happens in a place like Kerala. Usually in cities, you don't or you cannot have the septic tanks because the houses will be very close and you cannot have an effective septic tank everywhere. So it is forced to have a network system, sewerage network collection system, and that needs to be treated with sewage treatment plants. And then the TSE, the treated sewerage effluent, which can be used for irrigation purposes. So this is something happens in the developed countries, like or sort of a developing countries. But in our area, what happens is the sewerage network collection system, I don't think is there somewhere. Okay, maybe somewhere. But even if you move to the what you call municipality or panchayat region, you can see it's the houses are almost like in the city. It's very close. So there is a very, very alarming hygienic system which is going to be deteriorated within those regions. And the consequences you can imagine. So bottom line, all these things are in front of us or the scope in front of civil engineers to fix it. Either today or tomorrow, this will become a necessity to fix it. Then comes the irrigation engineering. Irrigation, as I said, in the region where I'm in, there the main irrigation is from TSE, treated sewerage effluent, which is coming out from the STPs. But in our countries, we have a lot of dams and a lot of other resources. So this water is also being used for the irrigation system. And it's a slightly different way it is being managed than other countries. Since we have a lot of water at the moment, I'm not saying we don't value them, but we must value it. But it is not to the degree where it is supposed to be. I'm really doubtful. Then comes maritime. Maritime, again, it's a different ballgame, or it's a different animal, in other words. So that has got primarily two parts: coastal engineering and ports and terminals. Coastal engineering means it'll cover all the marine structures like edge walls, then breakwaters, groins, all those kind of things will come in the coastal engineering. And that is, again, if you say, somebody might ask, what's a breakwater and what's a groin? What's the use of these things? Yes, it is very, very, very useful thing, and it is very badly needed once. When you construct a port or something, you need to make the water calm. So this is the only way. The breakwater is the only way which you can make it the waves calm in that area. And the groins, which the basic difference, if I say, between the breakwater and groin is perpendicular to the shoreline, and breakwater will be parallel in line with the shoreline. That's a quick differentiation I can make it, if you ask. Of course, there are offshore structures which will be directly facing the real wave energy. So that's a different kind of design which will come. And the ports and terminals, as you see, it's as the name indicates, it's a port, harbors, jetties, and those kind of things. So these are basically the four majors or four major brackets which I mentioned in the beginning. And CET, fortunately, in CET itself, we have all these specializations: structures, transportation, hydraulics, water resources. And recently there is one more thing which is added, which is geoinformatics. And all these things are really, if I say useful, it is very less. Should be something which is really great. Let's move on to the last two things which we added as the supporting services. Which is first one is a geotech. If you look into geotech, you can see there is two more sessions, which is ground investigation, foundation engineering, and a tiny little box showing geophysics and hydrogeology. Ground investigation, it's obvious. It's any structure when you construct, you need to know what is below that, below the ground. So according to that, only you can design the foundation. So that's why the foundation engineering is coming in under geotech. And this is very, very particular. If we, for the case in specific, if I say major infrastructure structures, it's needed. Buildings, it's needed. We used to laugh at these bridge engineers. You know, if there is a bridge pier or abutment, they will say the borehole exactly at the location where the pier is, or exactly where the abutment is. Okay. So these kind of things, without that, they won't actually even move their pen. And when I say about the geophysics and hydrogeology, geophysics actually, it has got a role to play when you come to deal with mountains, especially the tunnels, or when you cut a mountain to construct a road or whatever it is, or maybe some housing development or whatever it is. There it comes to play. There could be fault lines which could slide eventually. When the rainwater peeps into that, the fault line usually will consist of clays or silts that will become soft, and it could slide. So that's also an important thing when you go to these kind of areas. And of course, there are geologists. There is another group which we actually these days borrow from our geology department. So they will also help in this kind of region, in these kind of activities. I already mentioned foundation engineering, what it is and how it is connected to ground investigation or connected to geotech. And as obvious, this foundation is required on all other disciplines. That's why I said it's applicable to all. It's a supporting service. If you look at commercial, this is another interesting part. First one is QS and estimation, contracts management, planning, and project control. This again has got several skill groups within that. If you look at the QS means quantity surveyors. There are buildings. There's a separate group for buildings and separate group for infrastructure. This year I'm talking about with the perspective of a reasonably big size organization, or even small size. Basically, if it is a small size, both will not happen. But if it's a big size organization, there will be buildings as well as infrastructure. But these are all separate skill groups. So the QS, there will be separate group QS for buildings and separate group QS for infrastructure. Again, as I said, this is required for all other disciplines. When we come to contracts management, this is another important skill group under commercial, and it is connected with the money. That itself is it itself will make this one more important. Even when we come to contracts management, there are companies or organizations which do have one set of contracts engineers or contracts management personnel. They're supposed to manage the pre-tender as well as the post-tender activities. The pre-tender, in the sense that will come under the procurement and before till the establishment of the contract between two entities. And the post-tender means obviously once the project started implementation, moves into the implementation stage, there comes the post-tender contracts management. It's a slightly different activities, but it can be one group dealt with both. But as I said, depends on the size of the organization or depends on the their size of the portfolio of projects. There could be separate skill groups for these two sessions. Then comes the planning and project control. Planning and project control, this is again the scheduling, making the programs, and all. It's we cannot actually limit it into just planning or making the schedule or something like that. It has got a major role to play. If again, if I talk about it's a lot to talk about, so I'm not going into that one. That will come in the subsequent sessions. Then it will be more clear onto that one. And project control is also the same thing, which somebody might say it's one and the same, but it's not one and the same, but it can be clubbed. Then comes the quality assurance and quality control and health and safety, all these kind of things. Then somebody might ask, okay, say for example, health and safety. Why a civil engineer is needed for health and safety? It actually starts when the design starts. Okay, there it say, it's called, what the terminology? I think it's CDM, yeah. Anyway, so this is basically the different options in front of a civil engineer when he start looking for his career. Now I understood what is actually the project support services. And altogether, if you look at it, more than 20 skill groups, if you count it, a civil engineer can be placed in terms of specialization. And then if we move on, we will be moving into where all these civil engineers will be placed. That you can see has got government organizations, consulting companies. Deepak will explain all these things. Then you can see how many multiples it's going to be spread across, right? Anyway, I think that's enough. This itself is too much. Probably, I think I overshot the time a little bit. I'm sorry for that. I'm just handing over to Deepak. Deepak will continue from InWare and the subsequent other two sessions. Thank you very much. I'm stopping the screen share. Deepak, please take on.
Thank you. Hope everyone had got a glimpse of where civil engineers are working today. We have got a plethora of opportunities in front of us. It's just that we have to find out where it is lying in front of us. So coming to where we can actually get placed, we can actually see various opportunities such as there is an option with the public sector. Then when we look into the private sector, there are generally 3 areas where we can actually work on to. That's infrastructure developer, or in a consulting domain, or with a contractor, or academics and research as a career profession. So I'll get into a bit more details of that. If you look at public sector companies, what it means by a public sector company is that it is actually into development of public and social infrastructure, and which includes roads, drainage systems, pedestrian facilities, bridges, and systems which is actually needed for the public to use. A typical job function in the public sector company is to administer and supervise the design, the construction and maintenance of the assets which they actually create for the public. So if you look at the companies or the organizations work in the public sector, includes the Airport Authority of India, organizations like CPWD, NTPC, National Highways Authority of India. And in the state, we have the Public Works Department, which itself is a huge area and various subdivisions under that. And the Kochi Metro Rail is an example for that. So generally, Kerala PWD, LSGD, Town Planning Department are all parts of the public sector where civil engineers can find an opportunity. And there are special projects and divisions which work in the state currently, which includes the Kerala Infrastructure Fund Board, organizations like KSTP, Urban Development Program, Road Fund Board, etc. On a central level, we can have the central CPWD, central PWD. There's railways as a division, and there are lots of public sector units or special purpose companies work into it, like BPCL, Indian Oil, NTPC, etc. I'll get into the details of how we can get into there at a later part of the session. And KMRL is an example of a special purpose vehicle company which is formed for a particular purpose. So now let's come into the largest plethora of opportunity where the private sector or the infrastructure development part takes place. So when we look at the developer, developer is normally known as the client who actually invests for establishing the infrastructure for a commercial use. So that is how clients actually work. So there's a requirement of engineers for preparing a top level specifications for a particular project that we look into. So these are a few examples of that. I'll come into that. Before that, generally to be a part of an infrastructure developer, we have to be with a good set of experience, or there are skill set typically mandated for middle management positions. Entry level engineers are generally recruited, but on a lower scale compared mainly for the project implementation and management. And as I earlier said, there's a combination of development with the public sector unit coming recently in the mode of PPP projects, where a private developer join hands with the public to build up a public infrastructure. So these are some of the large companies working in India, like DLF, Reliance, Adani, Gammon, GMR, GVK, IVRCL, all those companies which actually we call them as the developers. So coming to the next level, bottom level, the middle level, which we call it the consulting level. Consulting engineers actually liaise with the clients, which we mentioned before, mainly to plan, manage, design, and supervise the construction of the projects or the assets which is intended to be created. Generally, the management activities, which we know as a project management or contract management or construction management, is also considered as a consulting activity in the industry. The typical functions include technical feasibility studies, site investigation supervisions, developing the detailed designs, managing tender procedures, award of contracts on behalf of the client, manage and supervise the quality audits, and take up technical advisory on lots of civil engineering issues. There's an emergence of a project management consultants in the industry recently, which actually work on behalf of the client or the investor to manage the entire project and hand it over back to them. So they will be actually managing a set of other consultants and the contractor. So there is an emergence of such job. For a specialized job, an MTech or a higher studies is generally mandated, and a job specific skill set is mandated to be a part of a consultant. So generally, if you look at it, there is a huge number of consultants in India. More than 50 companies in the top 100 globally is operating from India today. So there is ample opportunity to be part of a consultants. And as Srikanth mentioned in the last session, we can see India is coming as a global design center for lots of organizations like this. Indian companies, if you look at it, there's Tata Consulting Engineers, which have more than 5,000 plus engineers working with them. Engineers India Limited, Royal Haskoning BHP is a Netherlands-based company. Ecom is there, Jacobs, this is a US company, they have a large team in India, and L&D Infra Engineering is also an engineering wing from L&D ECC Group. So there are lots of companies in the consulting domain, and generally the job applications is through exams and interviews directly by the organization. Coming back to contractors, that is where the large cream of people work. The number of employees is also considerably large with contractors. So generally they undertake construction projects as per the specification of the clients and what is defined by the consulting engineers. There's a recent approach where clients actually award works as an EPC mode, where the engineering is also resting with the contractors, and then the contractor appoint a consultant to detail what is actually required. So generally what they do is that contracting civil engineers turn the plans of the consulting civil engineers into reality. So that is how they actually work. So these are a few examples of the organizations. I'll come to that. So generally, if you look at the manpower split up between developer, consulting, and contractors, the larger chunk comes with the contractors. If you look at the numbers, if 2 engineers are with the developer, there could be around 10 consultants, and there could be maybe 50 plus people working in the actual contracting side. So the chunk of the numbers of civil engineers are aligned with one or more activities linked to a contracting job. The typical functions include licensing and working or jointly with the design team to implement the project, supervise the constructions. There are constructivity assessments, planning, everything. The job profile include estimation, QS, project planning, site engineers, construction managers, everything. And some of the companies are Hindustan Construction in India. L&T ECC is one of the largest contractor, if you say, in India. Bechtel is one of the largest in the world. The presence in India is relatively low, but it is one of the largest companies globally. Afcons is part of Shapoorji Pallonji Group, and they take up, normally we say those are the large contracting groups from the Tatas and the similar companies. If you look at Samsung and Hyundai, they have a major chunk of construction activities ongoing in India as well, in Middle East and in the Asian part. So the more than the mobiles or the car manufacturing, what we see, they have a large group under taking up of construction works as well. Generally, graduate level engineers are also preferred from the contracting team. There is another opportunity where academics and research can be taken up as a career. Institute like IITs, NITs, even CETs or private institutes offers various positions. And these are also typically mandated by requirement of an MTech or a PhD degree. Entry through admission exams and interviews, and generally for state government colleges, PSC exams are mandated. And if you look at research as a career option, there are institutes like Central Structural Research Institute, CSIR. There's Highway Research Board on the Indian Roads Congress. There's a Highway Research Institute in Kerala also. CET also, we have a Trivandrum Engineering Science and Technology Research Park known as TRUST. So lots of people have actually been part of TRUST currently. There are research activities happening at IITs and NITs where we can actually be a part of. So that is generally the overview of where we can actually work in. It could be a combination of what we see in this particular domain. And then when we look into the skills needed or the higher studies options, I'll brief through that. So I'll split up into a few portions where generally we look into how the public sector entry is done, institutes and admission criteria, professional membership, and a few of the software and tools which we civil engineers should be knowing. So generally the recruitment procedure to public sector, because generally there's a crave for people working in Kerala or people studying in Kerala that PSC is the best option to look for, or that is what the peer pressure comes into. But let me throw some light into what really happens in the entry group for a PSC exam. So generally there's a written test, there's an interview for that, and the validity of 3 years. But the saddest part of it is that there is a long waiting time from the time we apply, from the notification time till we get the first posting order. If you look at it, the average waiting time to get a PSC job or a government job of an assistant engineer into hand is maybe around 3 to 5 years. So the initial 3 to 5 years goes into getting a government job within Kerala. So that is actually a long waiting time. And within PSUs, what we see is that now GATE exam is a mandatory option of getting into organizations like BPCL, BHEL, IOCL, etc. So if you are looking a job in the PSUs, take GATE seriously, and you can actually get an entry into those organizations. So as I said earlier, what it happens in Kerala engineering or Kerala PSC jobs is that with a waiting time of 3 to 5 years, the best position that you can get into is an assistant engineer position within Kerala PSC. But there is an engineering services option where you can actually try and you can get posted in the middle management position directly. So the typical waiting time of 3 to 5 years plus the initial promotion time of around 8 years in Kerala can be skipped. So generally an 8 to 10 years of promotional period can be skipped when you look into a central services exam. But generally all these are mandated by a long waiting period. So that is why we should actually start looking into other options as well, not focusing purely on a government sector job. And these are the options to get in there. If you look at the courses and institute for higher studies, as we have seen, the basic specializations offered by the institutes are structural, geotech, transportation, environmental hydraulics. There are specialized courses offered. This is mainly not for the MTech students which are already actually pursuing. For BTech students, there are also specialized courses like applied mechanics offered by IIT Madras, ocean engineering or marine structures, geoinformatics. Then there is a set of management courses also offered currently. Construction management, NICMAR is one of the premier institutes in India which does that. Infrastructure management is taken care by IIT Bombay. Building technology is done at IIT Delhi and IIT Madras. Then there's also private institute that takes courses on project management. Generally, the admission criteria in India is mandated through GATE exams. But if you look at studies abroad, there are multiple options where Indians actually go for studies abroad. Generally, we see US, UK, Europe, Australia, and Singapore. US, generally, the duration is for 2 years. That is generally the only place where you get a 2-year master's degree in equivalent to what is done in India. The admission time also varies. UK generally is 1 year, Europe is 18 months, Australia and Singapore is also a 1-year course. These are the application periods. I'll share this with you later. Generally, if you look at best of the courses, you need a GRE score to get into that. And obviously the costliest part is the US. And it is obviously considered as the best of the lot because of the content they are actually delivering. And Singapore is also a good option generally where people try for an admission, and it's considered one of the toughest to get into. There's a set of professional memberships where civil engineers can actually apply. In India, it's normally given by Institute of Engineers in India. The Institute of Civil Engineers in India is also an organization which gives chartered engineer certificates. Chartered environmentalists are also there. If you look at the institutional memberships also globally, internationally, it is given by American Society of Civil Engineers, known as ASCE. Institute of Civil Engineers in UK, boards in Singapore and Australia. There are Institute of Structural Engineers in UK, Chartered Institution of Highways and Transportation, and organizations similar to that. So these are some of the professional memberships we can actually take for delivering the degree. Just a quick glance of some of the softwares and tools which we should be actually be handling it. And this is an added advantage into while we look for options or placements. As the last session we heard, there is a huge digital transformation happening within the industry. So if we are actually conversant with these tools, it would be good. So these are only the basic tools which we need. Specialized tools for each of the subject will be covered later when we actually go into the sessions of transportation or airports or maritime sectors. So Excel is one of the key things that you should all be aware of. AutoCAD, I'm not telling you that you should be learning how to do the drafting jobs, but you should be knowing how to use an AutoCAD software, how to read a drawing using AutoCAD. Softwares like Primavera or MS Project, you should be knowing how to open up a Primavera file and how to actually tweak working on the project plans. Basic GIS knowledge you should be knowing, and obviously the BIM tools, which is actually in the industry currently. Basically, you should be knowing how to read these files and how the information can be fed from them, how analytics can be done from them. All these are some of the basic tools that civil engineers from the industry should be knowing currently. So that's a general overview of where we can actually be a part of. So that's it for today. We'll be having a set of individual sessions coming up in the coming days, and you can actually be a part of all those sessions. So now we can take up some questions. Hope the overall idea is clear for you.
So I thank both of you for taking such a great effort to describe each field of civil engineering and sharing with us various career options that are available to us. And also, I hope that this session was helpful to many of us. And also, we'll continue with the Q&A session. Namida MS and Srijit M will present the questions put forward by our participants.
Okay, thank you, Shilpa. So, the participants have raised a few questions that we would like to put in front of you, but due to time restriction, we have filtered out a few of the most relevant and most asked questions. So, without wasting much time, I'll go to the first question. So, you have talked about the infrastructures that are interrelated with different branches of engineering. Do you think graduates should be exposed to these different fields also during their academic curriculum? So,
question is focused to Abu Sir mainly because he talked about the infrastructure.
Okay. Not really. As I said, when you start with your career, you will be in a specific skill group. And when you go further up, you will get the knowledge of these other skill groups or specializations in general. But it is not expected to have knowledge on all other civil engineering disciplines when you join a job, because you are actually a civil engineer. That's it. You don't need to worry about the other disciplines at that stage. But as I said, when we go up in the ladder, there will be information coming to us, and we will be getting an overall flavor of what's happening along with our specializations. And another thing, if it is, it could be better to notice, on major companies or maybe relatively major companies, they do have a scheme of CPD. That means continuous professional development. So when they're part of their training of the staff, they do give some awareness trainings of other disciplines or associated disciplines, which is required for that particular skill group. So through that one, we can grab all these informations. So bottom line, we don't need to worry about when we look for a job as a civil engineer about the other disciplines. Of course, if you know something about that one, it's always good. Any piece of knowledge is not redundant. I think I have answered the question.
Yes, sir, I think so. Next question is about CV preparation. CV preparation is something often overlooked by students in general. A common practice of all the graduates is to create a specific type of resume for all their applications. Do you think it is the right way to create a CV, or do you think they should be creating a separate CV for each of their applications based on what they're focusing on?
To me or Deepak?
It's in question in general, so both of you can answer.
Yeah, maybe I can answer that. What I would say is that as a fresher, when you apply the CV, wherever you apply your CV should be specific. You should actually know the company where you're applying. You should learn about the company where you're applying. And then your cover letter and the CV should also be specific. If you have a specific skill set that actually matches with a particular job, you should highlight that. So that should be the way how we can actually apply into those organizations. It has to be, generally it has to be specific. But for general applications, it can be taken up as a common job. But generally, if you look at it, if you're looking at a particular job or a particular project, it has to be a specific application. We'll cover some of those parts when we look into the later part of the program as well.
Thank you, sir. The next question was, sir, when you reach the position of a graduate, how did you deal with the choices in front of you regarding career options? Like which one to choose?
This addressed to both of you. Your experience as your graduate period during your graduate.
Right. I think to be practical, if you are not very badly passionate on any particular field, you can take it on, whatever is coming in front of you at first. But my personal preference is you should be in the core subject line. Because I always discourage these civil engineers or any other engineers going for a particular, it could be a, what do you call, colorful job at the beginning. So for example, if I make it a bit more open, if you go for a computer data entry or whatever it is, it could be a colorful job at the beginning. But 5 years down the line, you will feel or you will realize that you are nowhere. After 5 years, they may not be preferring you to continue. But if you are in the, when you try to think about coming back to the core subject area, there again, you are becoming a fresher with the 5 years of experience, which is not, may not be very much useful for the industry. Okay, that could be a black mark. So bottom line, or in short, whatever comes to you, if it is a core subject area, you can take it on. And as I said, you can always change, even after 1 year or 2 years, you can change it. But equally, having said that, if you get your passionate line at the beginning, then you are lucky, you can take it on. You can continue in that one. That's it. That's my opinion. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. Towards the next question, you talked about various fields where we can go after graduation, but what are your advices for those students who are planning for a startup or becoming an entrepreneur?
I think Devak will answer that. Startup man.
Yeah. Okay. Myself, I am actually working on a company based in Trivandrum, but it's mostly into consulting activities. Generally, anything related to construction activities or new ideas into construction activities we can take up, because as we saw from the last session onwards, there's a huge digital transformation happening in the industry. So what happens is that there are lots of startups working in this particular domain. In all what we have seen today, all the 12 or 20 infrastructure sector needs to get transformed to a digital mode. And all the organizations or sectors, what we have seen today, be the public sector or the consulting or the contractor, it has to be digitally transformed. So there's a huge opportunity in front of us where if we actually club the knowledge of the core engineering into that digital transformation, there's a huge opportunity. So we have to identify where new things can come in. And as Srikanth mentioned yesterday, there is a huge lack of productivity loss in the industry, where actually new startups can come in and actually increase how this can be made. We are one of the lowest area where a productivity or a manufacturing kind of activity happens. All other industries have moved on. So there is huge opportunity, maybe 10 years down the lane. If some transitional change comes in, we can do it. So there's lots of startup opportunities in that. being a contractor, take up small home and do some construction or supply labors, that's all gone. I mean, there are players to do that. But find out innovative jobs. These detailed things have to be part of our culture. We in Trivandrum also, we are trying to, we are not trying to be a BIM company. We are trying to bring BIM to our cultural part, where we actually deliver projects. We try to do it in-house. We present to clients in using these kind of models. So we have to, that ecosystem has to come within us. So people who can actually support being part of the transitional change would be, can be part of the drivers in the future. That is where the gap lies in.
Okay, thank you, sir. The next one, where do you think our country has gone wrong in utilizing our engineering brains? And how do you think our upcoming graduates could mold themselves to resolve this issue? Again, question, it's a general one.
Can you say it again, please? Where our country has gone wrong?
Yes, sir, in
So you also
utilizing
talked
engineering
about
brains, that
various problems that you
he might be talking about brain
noticed
drain.
in the transportation sector and all. But it's not because of a lack of engineers or anything, but there is something wrong happening, right? So what do you think is the problem?
Yeah, I can. I'm afraid whether I don't want to be a politician. So, yeah, I would like to be a technocrat. So I think that itself is obvious. But what's happening is actually, first of all, the outlook of our people who are working in our country or in our public works departments or other fields, they are not actually ഞാനെന്താണ് കിണറ്റിലെ തവള എന്ന് പറയില്ല അങ്ങനെ പറയണമെന്ന് എനിക്ക് ആഗ്രഹമില്ല പക്ഷേ that's a sort of to a certain extent that's a reality. People are making a lot of trips, even the politicians or the administrators, they're all making a lot of trips to other countries, going for studies and things like that. But they are not actually involving with this planning process or anything like that. Or even if our chief engineers or the guys, if they go abroad, they are seeing a lot of other things which could be adopted or implemented in our place as well. But there comes required a basic change and the change of attitude. I'm not saying it will not happen. It will happen, and it started happening yet. So eventually, it will happen. We are all hoping that, and there are signs. I mean, as I said, although I criticized, or maybe, I mean, it could be put it that way, the quality of infrastructure or the roads happening in there. But compared to the olden days, if you look at it, it's better. But it is not to the mark which it was supposed to be. That's a concern. And that's a concern of the value of money, what we spend on these kind of things. Because in my opinion, the money what we are spending is more than enough to have a better product. So there is something which is lacking, needs to be implemented, which means one of the thing is generally Keralites are having high amount of inertia. They are very, very reluctant to change. And if somebody try to change, there are a lot of other forces, or maybe, I don't know how to explain to that one. He had to come back to his old shell. And I had a conversation with several of my friends who is working in the public works department. And their experiences when they shared, I was actually accusing them. When they shared their experiences, I really felt sorry. So that's really the reason. There should be a person who is actually having that sort of outlook to get it changed or get the things done in a better way. As long as that is lacking, it's very difficult to work on, because when somebody actually try to make a change, if it is going to come back the reward for that one is going to come back as a blow. Next time he will not try. That is mostly happens. But as I said, there could be people coming in, even as a politicians, educated guys who are having a great outlook and having a wish to improve things. It will come through and it will develop. And eventually, we are all hoping that we will have a better environment.
I'll add a couple more things to that. I'll share my details as well. So, okay, I started my career overseas. I mean, to know what is happening globally, because I was passionate about being in the maritime sector. That also started with a maritime project based at Random during my college days. And I started overseas to know what is happening globally. Working 6 years down the lane, or I wanted to come back, always work back in Kerala. And I started looking for jobs after 5 years down the career. And I found practically none where I could actually use my knowledge back in Kerala. So I accidentally became an entrepreneur. And I started freelance consulting, slowly started giving out my ideas to people working here. I started registered my company within CET in the TBI, the incubator there. Then slowly moved out, set up a company within Trivandrum. And we had around 40 engineers at some point of time. And we were actually working for the largest infrastructure project which Kerala is currently undertaking under the Kerala Infrastructure Fund Board. So we were actually able to be part of a small change that we can actually bring to the system on how projects can be actually planned and how the new technologies can be brought into these aspects. So those things are happening. But for us to fit into that particular kind of activity in Kerala or India, it's slowly changing, but it may take time how it actually is happening outside. But if you can't find a way where we can actually place in, you create your way and implement it. That's it. We have to find our own way on how we can actually to give out the entire knowledge what we can. Don't go down always, go up always. If we know that we have that caliber and know-how and skill set, you should actually apply it. That's the thing. You have to get focused on what are your core skill set, polish your skills, and you should actually apply it. Even within, there are lots of government servants who actually do a good job. I'm not saying everyone is not looking at it. There are lots of my friends also who have actually gone into private sector who came back in Kerala and working here or in other organizations in India. So there are people actually working for that. So identify which are our core skill set, what are our passions, give your fullest of heart into it, you will get the right job.
Thank you, sir. The next two questions are more focused on a specific specialization. So I think it will be better if they answer them personally itself. So with that question, let's wind up the question answer session for today. We hope we have addressed almost all the queries that were put forward. Now, if there are further queries that you would like to address, participants can reach out to us directly via the CFP volunteers of your respective branches. Thank you, sir.
Now I would like to call upon Anas A to deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Shilpa. CFP session 1.2, career options for civil engineers. Before starting, let me remind you, start today creating a vision for yourself, your life, and your career. Bounce back from adversity and create what you want. Rebuild and rebrand yourself. Good evening, everyone. Hope the session supplied you enough knowledge on what after your degree. My duty is to deliver the vote of thanks. And so foremost, it's my pleasure to thank the speakers of the session, Mr. Abu Sushilan and Mr. Deepak Beni. They have converted their decades of experience to this wonderful session, an informative session and a well-explained Q&A session. Thank you for sparing your valuable time to bud us. Thank you, sir. Moreover, I'm so thankful to the members of CETA, that is the alumni team of CET, Our mentor, the Principal of College of Engineering, Trivandrum, and the CET Civil Engineering team, led by our HOD, guided by our dear faculties, and organized by our student volunteers, for their continuous support throughout the schedules. And to the participants, congratulations to all our participants, as you have taken the first and the best step towards a better career at the moment you took the decision to be the part of CEFP. Thank you for your participation and hope to see you throughout the journey. And the next session is scheduled on 22nd December and will be made available to the selected students from BTech S7 batch as of now. Schedule of the further sessions of each batch will be informed beforehand. Thank you so much for being with us in this session. Thank you, myself, Anas A, and on behalf of the team, CEFP, thanking you once again. Thank you and best wishes. Good night.
Before leaving, students, please note that there will be a feedback form provided in the chat box below. Spare a few minutes to let us know how we can improve your experience in the upcoming events as well. So you may all